My name is Leanne Buchanan. I'm the Executive Director of Venture Cafe Miami, and I'm so excited to continue as your host for today. We've got a special treat up next, and we're really going to be going back into the focus on Latin America with a great conversation focusing on e-commerce in Latin America. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Mercado Libre, Marcus Galperin, and the conversation is going to be moderated by author and general partner of Next Billion Ventures, Christopher Schroeder. Please give them a warm round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Well, I'm the luckiest man alive because I get to spend time with this extraordinary man. All of you know the stories and the numbers, and the data is incredible. Mercado Libre is one of the great internet stories, not only in Latin America, but really anywhere in the world. Over a $12 billion market cap, recently entering the top 100 companies traded in NASDAQ. Over 50 billion buyers and sellers overall. That's extraordinary. But to me, what you're about to hear right now is what's most extraordinary is in many ways, Marcos is just getting started. So I really want to talk about the future because the new stuff is going to be a mind blow, but I think it's wonderful to right-set the audience a little bit on some of the extraordinariness of what you built. And no numbers or anything else, but really just kind of the story, which the entrepreneurs, I think, need to understand, is that an overnight success takes years. And you navigated not only impossible things within your markets, you went through 2 bubble explosions and 2 crises, and now a major competition. And as you reflect upon that journey of now almost 20 years, how would you explain to entrepreneurs here what it means to be able to navigate this kind of distance as well as output?
Well, thanks, Chris, for the interview, and Emerge for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I would say it's when these crises happen, and I would say the dot-com bubble burst was a crisis, and when we IPO'd, actually we IPO'd in the middle of the financial crisis. I can tell you that story later if you want. But competition is permanent. It's not a crisis. It's a constant. It's the only thing that never changes. But to navigate through these things, you need to basically love what you're doing. If you are doing an endeavor because you are interested in the financial rewards, it's very hard to be able to make it through these crises, because in the middle of the crisis, it seems like it will never stop, But if you really love what you're doing and you have a great team, then it's not that hard to sail through these hard times.
You had mentioned earlier, and I'd completely forgotten this, that you really had a fantastic offer to get bought out fairly earlier in your existence by eBay for $700 million, which then must have seemed like an enormous number. What happened?
Well, fortunately, they backed out. So, yeah.
So how did you think about that, taking that offer as opposed to fighting on your own? And what happened once they backed out?
Yeah. So, that was the year 2006. We had raised our capital in the year 1999 and 2000. So we had, fortunately, investors that were willing to withstand the company through the very hard times that it took us to become profitable and to survive the dot-com bubble burst, let's say. And by the year 2006, they were already pretty eager to monetize their investment in the company. And eBay was a shareholder of Mercado Libre, a strategic shareholder. So we came to this deal, and at the last minute, they backed out, which ended up being obviously great for us. But at the time, it was pretty daunting. We ended up IPOing at a higher valuation 1 year later. But at that time, it was important. There was never a Latin American company who had done an IPO in the NASDAQ. It looked like an impossible ordeal to do that. But we were able to pull it out.
How did you keep the team engaged? They must have been excited to know that they were going to get acquired by this company, and then all of a sudden it just went away, and they had to figure out something totally different.
Yeah. Well, I would say it was harder to keep the investors engaged, because they were the ones who were more looking forward to this and more skeptical that we were going to become the first Latin American technology IPO. I think the team was always very focused on our mission, which is basically to democratize commerce and more recently financial services to Latin America. That is to make commerce and the access to financial services widely available to everyone in Latin America. So as long as we were focused on that, if this investor owned our shares or if the public markets owned our shares, it wasn't that much of a difference to the employees and to most of the management team.
You have described your product development in this period as the first round of the products you released always failed. The next round then came back and failed a little bit less.
Yeah.
I mean, talk a little bit about how do you navigate that and again keep things motivated? How do you know that a failure isn't a no as opposed to coming back and doing it again?
Yeah, well, it's also difficult because when you read the books of how all the companies were formed in the US, it looks like they just set up the website and it started to grow and grow. The famous story of eBay is Pierre Omidyar, its founder, said, hey, I need to start paying for bigger servers because there's so much usage. So he asked some of their sellers to chip in some money because he needed to pay for bigger servers. And all of a sudden, he started to get so many checks on his mailbox, he realized he had a business. And we always say, if we would have done that route in Latin America, we would still be waiting for the first check to arrive. So in Latin America, you need to, build things more. And they don't just happen automatically. You need to work much harder for them to happen, particularly in e-commerce and digital payments, that all the infrastructure wasn't there. So we needed to build ourselves most of that infrastructure.
And in the end, I mean, it's such an interesting dynamic in navigating that right there. I mean, do you have a mentor? Who did you rely on to give you advice in these kinds of discussions? Was there anyone who stood out for you?
Not really. Endeavor has been helpful all along, but there wasn't much culture of entrepreneurship in Latin America when we started in 1999. There was no venture capital. As I say, we were the first Latin American IPO to come to the US. So you didn't have these guys who had done it before who could introduce you to VCs or to lawyers or who could tell you, I've been through this is what we did. This is now happening in Latin America. There are fortunately many companies that have done well. And there is a very strong culture of paying back to the ecosystem, trying to, as we say, pay it forward. This is more common today. It wasn't so common 20 years ago.
Are you able to be a good mentor now, or is there time?
I have lots of entrepreneurs I'm their mentors. I'm also an angel investor in several startups. There are several local venture capital firms where I'm a limited partner. Endeavor is very strong all over the region. It has very strong local boards. And as I said before, there are many other companies that went public and did very well. So there's a more support than what there was 20 years ago.
You've said that it's crucial to keep innovation coming and taking risks. I think every company that becomes very successful says that. Every company believes it, and frankly, we all know as outsiders it has to be done. But the implementation of constant innovation at scale is often the ultimate dichotomy. Can you talk a little bit how you get at your scale, but at the same time feel like you're staying on top of it? We'll come to competition in a second, but you're in a very new world now. So how does that work?
Well, competition has a lot to do with it. You either continue innovating or someone will do it for you. And at the same time, we are still not in a position where the product that we have is already so good that we don't need to iterate any longer. So we need to continue iterating and improving our product. And at the same time, fortunately, Latin America has matured, and it is today in a stage where many more things can happen. We were talking earlier about cryptocurrencies. There, in the financial services world, lots of things going on. Many startups doing really well. So there are lots of things going on, And you need to continue innovating because otherwise someone will do it for us. And in a network externality business, to maintain your leadership, it's very important to have the best product.
So let's talk a little bit about the competitive environment, which really has shifted dramatically. Everyone, obviously, in this audience thinks about Amazon all the time, and much of this audience, because it's so international, understands, but I'll tell you, most Americans do not understand that China really is everywhere. This is not a Silicon Valley world coming to do whatever it does in the world. This is now a much different kind of place. So you're getting it at two sides. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think we are privileged in that sense. We have a leading position in every country in Latin America, and we have to compete with the best in the world, from the US and from China. And for us, it's an honor to be doing that. And there's also very interesting dynamics because these players also compete among themselves. So if they see us competing against one, then the other one is interested in helping us. So we can also benefit from this type of dynamic that is going on. But it's a great challenge to have at this stage of our company and our careers.
You are a very noble man, and you speak about this with great nobility. There must have been moments in the last 3 years you look up at the ceiling at 3 in the morning and say, "They're here." I mean,
every evening.
Yeah. So every
morning.
So talk about it. Talk about what it means to you to manage, how you've changed things because of that operationally.
Yeah, you need to keep focused. You need to, anguish doesn't take you very far. So you can wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then at 6 o'clock you will be very tired, and you still have to do what you need to do. So basically, keep focused on doing the things that we need to do to provide the best service and the best product to our users. And basically, we have two huge areas. One is our marketplace, where we are democratizing commerce, and our other area is financial services, digital financial services, where we're trying to enable everyone in Latin America to have access to financial services.
Talk a little bit about what does it mean when you had this wonderful phrase I wish I had invented about democratizing money. What do you mean by that?
I mean, in Latin America, roughly half of the population doesn't have a bank account. That means they don't have a credit card. That means most of the times they don't have loans. That means they cannot make wire transfers. That means they live on a cash situation every day. And we believe, but they all have a mobile phone. And most of them are users of our platform. So they have a digital wallet with us, and we think we can enable them to have a credit card, a debit card, to transfer money freely to anyone immediately, to lend them money. Actually, they are great credit, at least for us. We know them very well. We know what they do on our platform, both as buyers and as sellers. So we are enabling them financially. Governments have been trying to get this part of the population, this segment of the population, into the formal financial system for decades, and they have been unable to do it because it's very expensive for the banks to attend to these customers. But for us, it's very cheap, it's very efficient. We have a lot of information about them, which is not typically the information that the banks request. We don't ask for 3 years of their financial statements because we've seen their sales on our platform. We look at their risk profile in a different way, and we feel very comfortable lending them our money. And these guys, for the first time, they are able to get a loan. And I wouldn't be surprised if a few years down the road, these loans, this history that they have with us actually enables them to get a loan from a bank because they can show the bank, hey, this is my financial history with Mercado Libre.
I'm listening to you, and one of the things that I think about as I see tech startups all around emerging markets, always I'm worried about the platform effect. There's the big Silicon Valley person's going to come in, what's going to make this company defensible? Now China's going to come in, what makes it defensible? Listening to you just talk now, it sounds like you're doing something that in fact is quite defensible. This is a very hands-dirty, regulatory understanding, market by market understanding thing. Am I right in that? Is this competitive advantage in fact?
Yes, well, it's like that everywhere, and that's probably the reason why even in the developed markets in the US or in Europe, maybe China is different, but you don't have yet a Google or a Facebook in the financial world.
No.
It's, what we think is the more regulated an industry is, the more it favors the incumbents. In this world, I think the incumbents are the brick and mortar banks, and I think banking regulation has helped the established financial world defend itself better, and that's why you don't see yet a Facebook or a Google of the financial world. I don't know if you will see one, but I think you will see many companies like us making a lot of progress. In our case, we have this huge opportunity, which are the people that are unbanked. So that is whom we are aiming. And rather than going to compete with the banks, even though I think the banks are very threatened by us, we really believe we are going to a segment that is right now not being attended by the banks.
How do you reach this segment? What is, we could call it technically cost of acquisition, but it's more than that.
So as you said earlier, it's a success. How do you say the overnight success that took 20 years? We have roughly 35 million buyers and 10 million sellers on our platform. It took us 20 years to build this platform of buyers and sellers. Once you have 40+ million people using your application on the mobile phone or on the desktop or on the mobile web every day, then it's very easy and very efficient to reach them. But it's not overnight that you're able to build this reach.
What has surprised you? You have these customers, you have data on these customers, but trying to get them to do a new behavior is a behavioral change, right? What has surprised you? What have you learned that has been amazing to you in that?
Well, one of the things that I'm very surprised with, these past few months, is the almost insatiable demand there is for these financial services that we are providing them. I mean, I was telling you earlier, but we did a partnership with a major credit card and started to distribute this debit card that matches your account balance on your digital wallet and enables these people to basically use a major credit card brand all over Latin America and the world. And in the two countries where we launched this, in Brazil and Argentina, we ran out of plastics. The demand was so high that we didn't have, it was higher than our most optimistic projection. So that is just one example. But there is, these people that have never been able to use these services really have a lot of demand for them.
It's just exciting. It's amazingly impactful. It'll be remunerative, but it's amazingly impactful overall. Culturally and internally, when you shift, I would say it's an evolution, but you are going into a new business for you in a big way with a very big bit. Your culture, your people have been understanding a very certain way of doing business for 20 years. Sometimes when great CEOs go into a new business, they fall in love with the new thing, and the old thing gets a little bit stale. Like, how do you navigate all that?
Yeah, well, our two platforms are completely integrated, and they form an ecosystem. So let's say we are lending money to the merchants in Mercado Libre. What we're seeing is these merchants that borrow from us, they sell more because they use that money to buy more inventory or to improve their warehouses and deliver faster. And typically a merchant who borrows from us sells more. So we collect, and that's why also we don't need to charge them very high interest rates because we're also making a profit out of their sales on our marketplace. And these loans make these sellers become better sellers on our marketplace. So I would say it's not one or the other. I think they're both completely integrated and very synergistic with each other. It's we believe what we're doing is building a competitive advantage.
I mean, your competitive advantage in data alone seems like a mind blow to me. I mean, you probably know more about people's ability to pay back things than most of the economy in Latin America. I mean, it must be extraordinary, no?
We do have a lot of information. I was saying before we had in 2017, we had 10 million sellers on our platform. Roughly 500,000 of those make a living selling on our platform. So these are small and medium-sized businesses, and they do sell in volume. So we have a lot of information about these merchants, and that's why we feel very comfortable, lending money to these merchants, even though we don't require that, any of the things that they are required in the offline world. They don't even need to sign a contract with us. Everything happens online, and in literally 2 clicks, they have their loans.
In this era of the data that you have, the 2 related questions. One is, data has become somewhat not very popular in America all of a sudden. It was sort of the thing everyone was excited about. I still think people are very excited by it, but now it's getting a scrutiny with Facebook and others, which is profound. And so one question I have is, how do you think about the use of that data and thinking about it in this environment?
Well, we don't sell advertising to our users based on that data. So, I think it's very different. I think that our merchants, if you ask them, Mercado Libre is using all this data to offer you these loans, I think they will say,
they'd be happy.
That's great. That's great. Rather than having to provide them, 5 years of audited financial statements and then signing this and then signing that, this is fantastic. And they know we have that data from them. And the same thing with the consumers whom we have started to lend them some money. I think there's a different model, which is everything is for free, and I will sell advertising using the data that you provide. That's a world where we're not in. Yeah.
Has your recruitment changed dramatically? Are you chock full of data scientists now as opposed to software engineers and marketing? Like, what's that difference, and how do you think about being prepared for this new world?
I think there's a limit to the supply, particularly in Latin America, but people train to become better at data analytics. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to hire as many people as we can, and we're also training a lot of our engineers to become better at understanding and data and using neural networks and artificial intelligence.
Are you finding partnerships to help on this?
We have some companies that we work with very well that provide specific advice on certain risk modeling, and we give them a set of data, they work with it, they show us their results, we compare and contrast those results with ours, and we have a debate about what could be working better in one case or the other. So yes, we definitely need all the help we can get.
Tell me a little bit about your growth right now in terms of hiring of people and where this is going to be going in the next 18 months.
We're growing. We've never grown faster. Last year, we grew our top line roughly at 70%, which is the fastest we've ever grown. And we are hiring roughly 500 engineers and developers per year, which I think is the maximum we can hire. I think like 3 years ago, we had our entire technology team was 500 people. So yeah, that's a scale at which we are growing, and it seems like we are taking off.
You said something in passing before which really struck me, which is that if there's anything you could have done differently, you would have been more aggressive. So yes. Talk about that, and particularly what that means now in your future.
Yes, we survived the dot-com crash in the year 2000, in part thanks to the fact that we were very disciplined at building something and then hiring and then growing a little bit and then hiring a little bit more and going on a very measured step-by-step approach, which took us to where we were a few years ago. But I think now we are at a stage where Latin America is more mature, and as I was saying with credits, we run out of plastics. That is great. On the other hand, it's a terrible experience to ask for a card, and there's no inventory. So we need to think, bigger and be more aggressive and more bold with our projections and our hiring and our investments.
Does the culture understand that? You're a big company now.
I think that we are getting used to it, and obviously the intense competitive scenario also helps to be more aggressive.
And the competitive scenario has changed so dramatically in just a couple of years. I'm not going to ask you what your life's going to look like in 10 years, because technology, that's more than a lifetime. A year is more than a lifetime. But what are you keeping your eye on, not just in terms of competition, of new technology that's coming your way?
Yeah, well, everyone is trying to understand what the next platform is going to be, and everyone is placing different bets. So that is something that we're keeping our eye on, trying to understand what the next platform is going to be. Is it going to be voice? Is it going to be virtual reality? Is it going to be the car? Is it going to be a combination of these things? Will it be fragmented, or will one company have a hold on it? If this company has a hold on it, will it be an open platform like perhaps Android is on the mobile phone? Or will it be a closed ecosystem like the iOS is? Will there be two ecosystems, or will there be one? So all those things I think will have a big impact on us, and it's not very clear yet where this is going.
Are you leaning into any of those areas or want to lead in them? Or are you going to let the platform people figure it out?
We are today we're an applications company, and we believe that for a platform to be dominant, it will need to enable all the great applications. And we are at a stage where we want to make sure our application is the best. And that's why we're working very hard in the democratizing the financial services and all the area of fulfillment and logistics, which is a key area to provide a better experience to our buyers in Latin America. And it's very complex because it's many countries. Geographically, it's a complicated area. And it requires lots of investment and focus.
So when people talk about democratizing financing, particularly in emerging markets now, very often they're talking about crypto. I was just recently talking to folks who came back from China and noticed that everybody is now using their phone. Nobody's using anything anymore, and
Yes.
It's staggering. And he made an interesting observation. He said, I'm big on crypto. I think it's going to be a big deal, but I'm not sure why crypto makes that experience better. I'm wondering how you think about your future payments in that way.
I think exactly the same way. If you go to China, you will see people transfer money, everyone to everyone, basically for free and immediately, and it's digitally. It doesn't need to be encrypted. It doesn't require, a lot of energy usage just to decrypt this transaction. Yeah, maybe it's centralized in one company. Maybe it's in two companies in China. You have two very large payment platforms versus being decentralized. Now, the energy cost for the world of having a decentralized system, which will create all sorts of problems also, because decentralized is great for some things and not for other things. But I think that what I liked originally by the crypto thing is it's immediate, it's efficient, etc. You can have that. As long as money is digitally transferred over the internet, you have immediate payments and frictionless and basically for free, which is what's going on in China. I think that is a great advantage. I think crypto has other advantages that are very good as a store of value, but today I don't see it as a means of, I don't see it becoming widely available as a means of payment. I don't see the necessity of that.
Are you, you must be perfect for your business. What's the blockchain doing? Are you using blockchain now in any direct applications of your back office?
No, we have just now launched a partnership where you can buy on our platform using Bitcoins. You can use your account balance on our system to buy Bitcoins and vice versa. You can use your Bitcoins to buy on our marketplace, but we are not doing anything major yet.
Let me wrap on a personal note if I can. You've been described, I think maybe you've described yourself as a workaholic. You have a beautiful family. There are other activities that you have. Are you a workaholic, and how do you balance the things in life that you value with this love and passion that you've also built as well?
I don't know if I'm a workaholic. I really love my work. I always say if I wouldn't be working, at least half of what I do every day, I would continue to do. Which is getting informed, understanding what's going on in technology, thinking about how these things will impact our business. So at least half of what I do every day, I would continue to do even if I wouldn't be working. And yeah, certainly I think I work every day, but I also travel, and I can be golfing with my family for a week, but I would check emails and do conference calls in the morning and in the evening. So I love my life. It gives me a lot of freedom, and I do what I like. But for me, my family is very, very important. My friends, my lifelong friends, entrepreneurs. I really enjoy trying to build an entrepreneurial ecosystem in Latin America. I get inspired by Sorry, the office is calling. I get inspired by entrepreneurs and their stories, so yeah.
That's just fantastic. Well, we're lucky to have you. The region is lucky to have what you've built. A new generation of entrepreneurs really look at you as a role model, and it's an honor to spend some time with you. I wish we had more time, but I wanted to thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
What a pleasure.